Caoimhín, thanks for affording Kildare Television your time. It's been very hard for us to get an interview with a retired senior civil servant, so thanks for that. As you know, we're particularly interested in the events of around 2001, because at the time there was a rumour going around senior civil service ranks that there was going to be 50% increases in pay right across the public sector over the following few years. This was at the start of the real boom in the Tiger period.
Well, Eddie, first of all, can I thank you very much for having me on? It's my pleasure to be here. That's not strictly true, you know. We certainly didn't intend that pay would increase by that sort of level.
So 50% was wrong then?
No, 50% is about accurate, but our intention was that it wouldn't appear that way. See, a lot of this we put through allowances, expenses, sick leave. Sick leave particularly is useful in that regard because one can increase one's holiday allowance by anything up to 16 days, and did for those who took advantage of it, which is approximately 2/3 of the staff of the public service.
So 2/3 of civil servants take 16 sick days, which are really holidays, and then you had allowances and pension uplifts, presume, but when you added it all together, it was about, so 50% was right?
Approximately.
But okay, I can understand the grand plan, I can see that happening, but surely then you were challenging politicians, because after all, they're supposed to be running the country.
Oh, come on, Eddie, you don't really think that we allow the politicians to run anything, do you? We certainly allow them to imagine that they do. But in answer to your question, what we did here is we linked the pay of politicians to the senior grade of the civil service, even higher for ministers, plus unvouched expenses. And in the meantime, the public service union chiefs were, how do I put this delicately, persuaded.
But how did you persuade them? In public sector, union chiefs aren't in the pay of the public sector. They're not your employees.
Well, that's strictly true. We managed to persuade them, for example, to permit themselves to be placed on various boards of semi-state bodies, quangos of various sorts. And in that way, we were able to have some modicum of control over the situation. And that allowed us then to create a common interest in dealing with the problem of pay.
Okay, so you mean self-interest. So I can see that that there was a coming together of interests through this process. But surely then you were going to face an enormous gap opening up between private sector pay and public sector pay, and the private sector would see through it.
See through it? Mm-hmm. Do you mean the Paul Carrs?
Political correspondence, yeah.
The ramblers of the corridors of power. Eddie, they know nothing about money, nothing. And they're far too easily distracted by personality and celebrity. Bertie and Celia, what a golden couple. They were great for us. Also, I mean, the public service is much too complicated for anyone to see through it. And as for pension comparisons, well, they've no hope whatsoever. That's why we use them to pay the golden parachutes. And we could rely on our union partners from time to time to come up with a good sob story and a hand-wringing about the lower grades having a hard time.
So that's why people on the lower grades in the civil service, for example, would be regularly wheeled out on radio to tell their tough luck stories.
The public love their Gardaí, their teachers, their nurses, particularly the nurses. They do dig those nurses. And it's very useful as a screen. And may I also add in here the lower grade clerical grades in the civil service. Thank heaven for them.
Oh, okay, I can see that happening from, you know, how it came together. But then what happens when people like me and others would say, well, fine, look, there's these being huge pay increases and right across the board and everybody's getting it. But where's the value for money?
Well, we never use value.
Show me the money.
We never use money or the value for it as a comparison or a measurement of anything. That's much too complicated. We found it better and more convenient to use benchmarking. There is a wonderful word.
But, okay, you call it benchmarking, but what happened when they applied the benchmarks?
No, Eddie, we just decided to call it benchmarking. There are no actual benchmarks.
But surely then analysts like myself would go abroad for comparisons, look at this bloated edifice against the similar costs of the public sector in other European countries.
Well, certainly that was a concern, and we anticipated that outfits like IBEC might do that with the resources available to them. How we dealt with that is we commissioned reports, comprehensive studies of other economies, bigger economies with older age profiles, higher wage costs, larger armies, more complicated pension structures, that sort of thing.
Right. So because the mean age of the Irish population was 32 and the mean age of Europe was somewhere between 42 and 44, they would have higher health costs as a percentage of the economy, higher military costs, and of course much higher pensions. But I mean, so you commissioned these reports, but surely those reports then would come in, and there would be, a requirement to act on these reports.
Oh, no, we commission the reports, Eddie. We don't actually act on them.
But what's the difference between a commissioned report and an acted upon report?
Well, I'm sorry, I don't recognise the latter term. A report commissioned in this way takes a very long time, rather like a tribunal, to reach a conclusion. By the time the conclusion is reached and the report on the desk of the relevant minister, we find that the circumstances have changed, very often considerably, and it's necessary to commission a new report in the light of the new and changed and altered circumstances. And so it goes.
Okay, so let me get this right. You concealed the pay increases by using allowances and holidays, sick leave. You brought in the public sector union chiefs by persuading them of the benefit of linking their own pay and pensions to upper grades in the civil service, upon which the politicians and ministers were also based. And then you commissioned comparative studies occasionally against competitor economies, picking the type of economies that would give you the results that you wanted. Is that sum it up?
In the national interest, Eddie, in an effort to achieve harmony.
You mean they'd be harmony paid for with bribes?
I mean agreements, understandings, memoranda of understanding, undertakings, unwritten contract, if you will, between those people of influence and who understand how it works at the top.
Right. I can see how all that might hang together, but there was one flaw. There had to be one flaw, which is how could you then guarantee continuity, that the next person in your seat wouldn't just unravel the whole thing?
Oh, Eddie, you really don't understand how it works, do you poor mouse? I simply have to ensure that my successor asks the right question.
The right question?
How do I intend to spend my retirement?
So what boards and agencies and quangos you'd like to sit on to supplement your own pension?
Exactamundo. And it's worked.
So that's why all of the top senior civil servants have been immunised from the pay cuts over the last couple of years.
The great game goes on. The boys are playing a blinder. Of course, they have been particularly well trained.